Thank you, Madam Chair, fellow committee members. My name is Nick Pope, formerly of the British Ministry of Defence. I had responsibility for the UFO issue from 1991 to 1994, and with your permission, I'm just going to read a brief statement onto the record. The United Kingdom's best known and most compelling UFO incident is a series of sightings that occurred in December 1980 and are collectively known as either the Rendlesham Forest Incident or the Bentwaters Incident. The sightings took place near the twin military bases of Bentwaters and Woodbridge. These were bases in the United Kingdom operated by the United States Air Force. There were several dozen military witnesses, the most senior of whom was the Deputy Base Commander, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt. I'll give a brief summary of events as I see them before focusing on aspects of the case on which I have more direct knowledge. On December 26, 1980, two members of the United States Air Force, my colleagues John Burroughs and Jim Penniston here, who had been sent to investigate a suspected crashed civilian aircraft, encountered an unknown craft which had apparently landed in a small clearing. One of them got close enough to see strange hieroglyphic symbols on the side and indeed to touch it. The craft rose slowly above the trees and then accelerated away at great speed. A subsequent analysis of the landing site showed indentations in the ground, scorch marks on the sides of the trees, and radiation levels which the Ministry of Defence's Defence Intelligence staff assessed as being significantly higher than the average background. And the committee will have a small pack of papers, including that Defence Intelligence staff assessment. The UFO was briefly tracked on military radar. 2 nights later, the UFO returned and fired light beams at the Deputy Base Commander and a small team of men who had gone to investigate. It later fired light beams at a particularly sensitive area of the military base. Though these events happened many years before I joined the Ministry of Defence, it was a case that was raised with me on numerous occasions during my time working on MOD's UFO project between 1991 and 1994. It was certainly the case on which I received most inquiries from UK parliamentarians, from the media, and indeed from the public. So as to be able to better respond to these questions, I not only read all the relevant papers on the case, but also launched a retrospective review of the incident, something akin to what the police would call a cold case review. Subsequent to this, I've met in a private capacity most of the witnesses to this incident. Investigations by the United Kingdom were inconclusive. I do not know the results of the US investigations because, as the MOD documents released under the UK's Freedom of Information Act show, some evidence was removed by the US authorities without informing the British government. Specifically, the MOD case file reveals, and the committee members will have this document too, that shortly after the incident, General Gabriel visited the twin bases of Bentwaters and Woodbridge, was briefed on the incident, and took various items relating to the investigation back to his headquarters in Ramstein, Germany. At the time, General Gabriel held the post of Commander-in-Chief, United States Air Force in Europe. The MOD document concerned, though carefully worded, leaves little doubt that the UK authorities were less than pleased with evidence being removed in this way, with the MOD not being informed at the time, and not, so far as I'm aware, being briefed subsequently on the conclusions of whatever United States Air Force and or Department of Defense investigation followed General Gabriel's visit. My cold case review showed that General Gabriel's removal of the evidence was one of a number of factors that adversely affected the contemporaneous investigation. A combination of confusion over jurisdiction, i.e. between the UK and the US authorities, delay, and poor information sharing fatally undermined the original investigation. Part of the problem was that the US investigation was in of itself a direct contradiction of the US government's public line on UFOs, namely that the subject is of no official interest and that no official investigations took place after the termination of the USAF's investigative program, Project Blue Book, at the end of 1969. This clearly put senior United States Air Force officers in an extremely difficult position, and it was clear to me that the US authorities wished to hand the investigation off to the British, while the Ministry of Defense was equally keen to see the Americans take the lead. The confusion over precisely what happened at the time is compounded by the fact that some Ministry of Defense intelligence staff UFO files covering the time period of the Rendlesham Forest Incident have been destroyed, seemingly without proper authorization. While I'm aware that this action has generated some conspiracy theories, I'm not aware of any evidence that suggests this was a deliberate attempt to hide information, though I know that some people dispute that point. While some internal Ministry of Defense emails expressed delight at the loss of these files, my assessment is that these were unfortunate remarks by comparatively junior staff and were motivated by nothing more sinister than the relief of not having to respond to further Freedom of Information Act requests for the documents. By the Ministry of Defence's own admission, there was no definitive explanation for the Rendlesham Forest Incident, and the case remains unexplained to this day. However, when pressed to make a statement on the incident, MOD consistently said that the events were judged to be of no defence significance, quote unquote. A catch-all soundbite that the MOD consistently used with all UFO sightings, explained or unexplained. In this way, MOD could justify taking no further action, whatever the circumstances of a case. It's worth quoting, in conclusion, the assessment of Lord Hill Norton, retired five-star admiral who was former chief of the defence staff and former chairman of NATO's military committee. Commenting on MOD's no defence significance line on Rendlesham Forest, Lord Hill Norton said, "My position, both privately and publicly expressed over the last dozen years or more, is that there are only two possibilities. Either A, an intrusion into our airspace and a landing by unidentified craft took place at Rendlesham as described, or B, the deputy base commander of an operational nuclear-armed US Air Force base in England and a large number of his enlisted men were either hallucinating or lying." It's difficult to disagree with that assessment. In the course of my cold case review, I examined critically all the various theories that thought to explain the sightings in conventional terms as misidentification, hoax, or delusions. None of these theories fitted the facts. Most people, whatever their views on the UFO mystery, have probably heard of the alleged crash of a UFO at Roswell. Arguably, in the Rendlesham Forest Incident, we have a UFO incident more recent, better documented, and better evidence than the Roswell incident. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.